him as well as the First Lady. There wasn't that much to talk about, but I will say, I know this sounds really silly, but I had a pin on my dress that fell, on my sleeve that fell, and the First Lady actually bent down to the ground to pick it up. I just thought that was amazing. There are very few people that high up or in those high positions, no way. Most women would just be like, I don't even see that, right? Because for them, like, we're death now, like to go down and pick up something. I think that is amazing. That kind of sort of personality and humility is what's, from that meeting, that's what stood out to me. So I just want to give her a little bit of credit for that. I said it in private to some people, but this is a good opportunity to say it out loud. In terms of the No More movement, so everything has to evolve, right? First of all, we have a website, nomore.global. On there, we have a mission statement that makes it very clear what the mission is about. So the website was a big deal for us. It's a good website, actually. It's really hard to get websites done. Henok, I think Gebra's Gab here, maybe some version of that is who did it. I know him, but his last name escapes me. It's a good website. He's done websites for Walmart and other places, so it has a lot of parts to it. So I'm proud of that. And the next step is to continue to create content around it. So I think, and this is like, it came from God. Somehow the relations between the United States and the Prime Minister's office here has changed, at least on the surface. It is invited that kind of conversation. It's called diplomatic relations. It's really unusual for two major countries to not talk to each other, particularly in such a time of crisis. And so I just want to celebrate that. I think I've talked a little bit about this. We're saying no more to some of these things like Western intervention, war. I cannot wait till this war is over. I know that it started a little bit different, but right? I just don't know what to do. I don't know what any of us can do, right? I think it's going to take some divine intervention and the government coming up with some creative ideas to get those people in Tigray out of the situation. So I don't know how much more we can keep talking about that, the war in terms of no more, because I don't know, I don't have a lot of solutions. I'm talking to a lot of people that have connections to there, with the government, with the diaspora, but I think the conversation has to also move in different directions. Economic development is a big part of it. GERD is really on its way to actually opening. I think as journalists, we should all be paying attention to that. What went into making this happen? How is this going to change the lives of people here? There are probably a million stories we could do around GERD, and we need to start doing it now. Why? As soon as it opens, there's going to be an entire propaganda coming from the outside, from actors that don't want us to have it. So just the way that with No More, we thought, okay, this 1 year anniversary is coming, what can we do? We have to think the same way about, okay, GERD is probably going to open in the near future. What can we do to go on the offensive? We can talk about the people that work in those areas whose lives have been changed by the jobs that have been created. We can talk about what the energy is going to do for the people here. We can talk about how this is going to change the lives of women and mothers, which is something I've heard is important. So that's what I'll say about No More. And then also just kind of connecting with other African stations. So if your station is in English, there's no reason why you shouldn't be connecting with stations or companies in Kenya, Uganda, wherever it may be, Burundi. Let's break those walls. There's no reason. Language is a barrier for sure, right? But if you have an English program, why not reach out? If you have an Arabic program, why not reach out to Arabic programs elsewhere? Otherwise, everyone's in their narrow hole, and then you just don't make connections. The rally. So this is my perspective on the rally. So the first time it was scheduled, if that news about the releases didn't come out, I think the rally would have been fine. But because it came out and the reactions to it were very intense, it no longer made sense to have that rally, because we needed to have a conversation about what those releases meant, and it took time. No More did release a statement eventually. It took us, I think, a week and a half. Why? Because we wanted to learn what this meant. There was a lot of pressure. Put out a statement. What do you guys think? I don't know yet. Right? I need to understand what this is. And that's really what we have to do as journalists. The first thing I could do is say, I just recognize people's feelings. I get it. These names are very triggering for some people, some of them, and then others can be concerning about what's to come. But I put out something on Twitter just saying, I understand people's emotions, but let's really challenge ourselves to be calm until we get more information. And then we did get more information. There was a little bit clarity. This was not amnesty. This was a pooling of the cases. If something was to happen, connection with these people and those that were with them that were released, then the system still has the opportunity to open up the cases again. And then, you know, what I noticed about, believe it or not, the releases of, you know, some of the TPLF leaders made some of the young people from Tigray feel something, right? And so if it makes them feel like a little bit of openness to then say, okay, like they recognize us, wow, that's huge, right? To me personally, this is just a personal opinion, whether Sibhatna guy's in or out at this point at his age, it's not going to bring people back. As long as it doesn't hurt more people, as long as there's some sort of security apparatus around that, and as long as it brings young people to, here's what I've realized. We all have egos, right? So you need to give people a reason to relax and come forward. If that's a reason, so be it. I think the same happened, personal opinion, not necessarily, more speculation. Same with the United States. I don't think it was because of pressure the Prime Minister released those, and by the way, it wasn't him, right? It was through that reconciliation group. I don't think that was a U.S. pressure, because what do they care if Sibhatna or Jawar, or like, what is that really doing for the United States? It does nothing for their interests. But it looks like Ethiopia is making concessions, and now they can say, because Ethiopia is making concessions, we can change our tone. So it's PR, basically, in my opinion. So that's sort of the stance on some of the releases. Now the rally, the Tuesday after the rally was scheduled, there was a Pan-African conference that was happening here. And I learned that that conference moved from somewhere else to the Sheraton just for security reasons. To me, I hear that and I say, okay, if that's happening, and then maybe that's connected to the releases or the reaction to the releases, then why would we have a rally at a time where security is a little bit of a concern? It's not worth it. If you have bad actors, that is the perfect time where they'll do something. So even if it's a scare, something little that scared people, the conversation would be dominated by that. And then on top of that, people would say, oh, it's because of these releases that this violence happened, whether it's true or not. Now we're 4 steps back. My personal opinion about rallies, they're not that important. We don't need to do rallies all the time. We did rallies, people showed up, they committed, we made a statement, we used social media to amplify them. Now let's go do some work that's behind the scenes, right? Just because you don't see things happening on social media, it doesn't mean people aren't working. In fact, some of the best work is happening off of social media. So let's see how we can help people in our community. Let's see how we can help people that are poor, that don't have a job, that are sick, and then get that data, get the stories, and then put it out on social media so that you can show people, look, things are happening. Somebody has said, do more. I think hashtag more this is a little bit better, but that's just my opinion. So we just need to go in the direction of development and saying yes to positive things, saying yes to development and unity and collaboration with other countries. I am not qualified to say whether, you know, I don't know what to do, but what I will say is I think it is past time, in my opinion, to be talking about TPLF atrocities, because now we have to talk about, okay, but how do we fix it? Because they're not gonna, right? They are committed to dragging the people down with them. And so essentially what we have, in my opinion, is a hostage situation. Now, some of those hostages might buy into the idea, right? So I'm not saying everybody's involuntary. But if anyone's going to fix this crisis, to me, it's the Ethiopian government and the Ethiopian people coming together and coming up with something. And I don't know what that something is. This is such a bad situation, right? There's already so much damage. So I'm humbled by how much the Ethiopian government has been able to accomplish. The odds were completely against this country, you know, including the army, including the media propaganda. Whether you believe in God or not, there's some sort of divine intervention here, right? So knowing that and seeing that, I can't sit here and say they don't know what they're doing or I have a better idea, because I don't, right? So what I really hope, and I've heard this from government officials, and I hope to see it through, is people now, no matter what they think, say, we have to figure out how to fix this. As long as you have this region that's under that kind of terror, that's in that situation, I mean, how happy can we really be as a region? It's always going to be in our faces, right? So I just, I just hope the best for everybody that's involved, and I hope they use their wisdom and any capacity that they have. And I think the national reconciliation is a part of that conversation. If people that previously feel like they supported TPLF or they supported the leadership there, if they can be a part of the conversation in a different way, I think that will be a necessary part of undoing this war. I want to start with what you said about GERD. I think you said a lot of interesting things. እኔ ሳስበው የGERD ነገር is the next big no more issue. We cannot let that be what happened with the war, where the narrative comes and then we go on the defensive, right? You brought up the 1929, 1955. I don't know if it's the exact dates, but I know it's around those dates. Let's start talking about that. This should be on mainstream platforms. Let's talk about how much of the water is actually used by goods. Let's talk about how much agriculture that they're able to use from that water, and we don't use any agriculture. There's so many points of conversation to have there, and we cannot wait to be on the defensive again. That's my personal project too. I'm going to go back and then come. While I'm back in the States, that's going to be something I'm working on, and let's all work on it together. You can't have enough stories about that. So data points, just keep it short. You have to think of it like this. You're writing a story to somebody who kind of cares about the world, kind of knows about Ethiopia, but they're not going to read a 2-page article. They're not going to watch a 15-minute video. What they will look at is a graphic with data that can say, this is how much of the Nile is in Ethiopia, and look how much Gyps use, look how much Ethiopia uses. Boom. That's something that everybody can look at. So, I'm not saying the people here are not important in terms of stories, but the international space in this time of crisis is more important. It's more important that they understand what's going on than for us to talk to each other. One thing that kind of annoys me that I just want to say here, if you're on Twitter, don't use so much Amarnya. Like, nobody's reading that. Even us, we're not reading it as much, right? So Twitter is a space where the diaspora are, where a lot of English speakers are, where a lot of non-Ethiopians, non-Eritreans are, where journalists who, let alone read Fidel, like they don't speak the language at all, right? So if you're going to use Twitter and you're going to use the Giz letters, like it's a complete waste of time, in my opinion. So just keeping that in mind. In terms of the Western media and how to, navigate it, to me, it's as long as you're being accurate, there's nothing wrong with saying you guys are getting our story wrong. When you start getting it right, we'll be nicer to you, right? There's no reason to have to be super nice. The media, by the way, there, I noticed, is really just doing whatever the government does. Or wants them to do. So now the government's a little bit softer with us, right? So this is a good time to just kind of stop talking about what they're doing wrong and just start actually telling our stories, because the space is there and they might actually pick it up. For example, I did a story with the Associated Press about the impact of the war on the diaspora. I did it, I don't know, mid-December maybe. አሁን ነው የወጣው. Why? Because the US government's tone has changed. So they sat on it for 1 month, and then now I think yane biwata, it would be counter what the narrative was at the time. Now it's okay. So let's just use this opportunity, I think, to just tell your stories. Just little data. Data is important. We should all be curious. Like, I went to the industrial park yesterday, the Bole Lemi. I wanted to know, like, how many people work here? How much do they get paid? Oh, most of them are women. Oh, there's dormitories here. How many people live in the dormitories? Oh, 2,100. From this one South Korean company. We talked to some people there. So, ini desilinga data sinoring. Now I can go back and tell my friends, like, oh, there's this place that has 20,000 workers. You know, they have dormitories for people. That means they don't have to travel from different places. So, hulachin curious mahon alabin. Tininish data bimaslim, it's better than real data is better than a lot of unsure information. You know, a lot of the times we want to talk big picture, but we don't know the small details. So I am nenem, because we don't know the little stuff. A lot of journalism is about what seems like the little stuff, but at least you know it like a journalist. Like, we can actually say that as journalists. I think that's, and then in terms of the challenge, you know, for me, I'm here to learn. This trip was about ይሄ ጉዞ ለኔ ለመማር ብቻ ነው። ለመማር እና እኔ ማውቀው በጋዜጠኛ እውቀቴ ማሳለፍ ለእናንተ ለሚፈልገው ሰው. So to me, there's going to be a lot of time I spend just learning before I do too many big stories. በተለይ politics, ይቅርብኝ አሁን. It's too complicated. So, you know, I just want to do like the industrial park and, you know, the arts. There's somebody that I met, your homeless shelter, but just now 2,000 people have come in that were homeless before. And Dandochu, like Tunish, like the drug addiction, Noracho. Macedonia Sahon Addis, no. Yeah, a little bit. Macedonia, yeah. It's an old one. So those kind of things are interesting to me because they're not controversial. I only bakat aminoya politics was it wasn't so much for the politics, it was the way that journalism was messing with the politics. And it took me a long time to be sure about how that was happening. And so it's going to take me a long time to be sure about anything else new with the politics here. People ask me, why don't you say something about what's happening here, what's happening here? Because I'm not sure enough. Like, I need time to be sure enough. Because whatever I say is going to be a big deal, right? So I'll leave it to the political experts, and I just want to do those smaller stories when I come back. I know we haven't done a good job on promoting it. We did have a clubhouse discussion a couple of days ago at 9:00 p.m. our time. I think it was maybe Wednesday. You know, we're still building it. What we want eventually is to have other people's content be on there, but it's going to take time to make sure we have the right partners. We don't want to present ideas that are too counter to what we're doing, although diverse ideas are important. Ganano, like, there's really not much to really say about the website yet. It's a work in progress. There are articles there. The biggest thing Bahonsat is, since there's so much Twitter censorship, Twitter Kahitku, you'll find me on the website, right? Simon and Nebiu are both off Twitter, so you'll be able to see what they have to say on the website. We will have a chat forum. We'll have an email listserv. That was the biggest thing we saw. I'm surprised I'm not shut down. I think it's because I have the blue check mark. It's a little harder to take me down, but the censorship was very aggressive, you know, very, very aggressive. The reason that Simon was taken off Twitter still makes no sense. And then Nebiu, they just reached whatever reason they could find, and then still makes no sense. So the biggest thing was just to make sure that we can have our own space and we don't get separated if somebody gets censored. So thank you, it's a good question. I guess the international media part is sort of my part, I think, in so many ways. But you know what? It doesn't matter if I start one. We all need to be a part of it. You know, you guys have content that I'm not going to have. We're going to be collaborating. We're going to show up at the same press conferences eventually. So that's in the works. That's part of why I'm just leaving, because I need the time to really focus and plan that out. And then make sure that, you know, whatever investments or collaborations I have, I still have the editorial independence. ብዙ ጊዜ corporate media ሲባል, it's because so many people invested their money and now they want to tell you what stories to tell and not tell. So for me to counter corporate media, I can't have another corporate media, right? So I'm trying to figure out how to stay independent, how to get the right people. But in the meantime, you guys are already established, so just switching up the ways you're telling some of the stories, keeping like the international media in mind. In terms of institutions, I think for the long-term sustainability of this country, absolutely our institutions have to be reformed. You know, you may like the prime minister now, but if the institutions aren't right, the next person may not be so good, and then you've got a lot of problems. A lot of what this, I think the way this country runs is, you know, what's the right way to say it? There's not the same checks and balances. Like the United States, you have the House and the Senate. It takes forever to get anything done, but it's also really hard to undo the country overnight, right? So we need something like that where it's, you know, more of a balanced parliament, and then judicial institutions and all of that. But I think right now is a really tricky time to talk about it, because we're literally in the middle of a war. In the middle of a war, even the U.S. doesn't follow the same orders. The president can make decisions very quickly for the sake of the security of the country and things like that. So I think institutions, educational, health institutions, the political institutions all have to move into the direction of having checks and balances, being well run, not being corrupt, so that the next generation doesn't have to deal with what we dealt with this sudden turn of the country, just the way that our parents dealt with the sudden turn of the country. In terms of next steps with No More, one thing that we want to do is have a declaration list, meaning like, what do we stand for? Like having just really bullet points. 1, like unity, what does that mean? Like 2, Pan-Africanism, what does that mean? 3, anti-Western intervention, what does that mean? And so we are all working on it. Part of the reason, again, I'm going back is because they're like, hello, like, what are you doing out there? Like, we're not, you know, I'm not as involved with No More at the moment because I'm here meeting people, you know, going different places. So when I go back, we'll really be having like, you know, long meetings, and, you know, the time zone is also really difficult. So once we have those declarations written down, then we can say, hey, if you meet these requirements, we'll support you. We don't have to do the project or the campaign. But until we know exactly what the criteria is, it's hard. Like, I want to support other people. There are other people in the Ethiopian community and the Eritrean community and other African communities that are, you know, Mali's got a lot going on right now. I want to support that under No More, but it takes time to study it, and we have to have a meeting about, like, so what are you guys really doing? Because it's really easy to think it's a No More movement, but it's like the opposite. So I don't want to accidentally support the wrong thing. This just has to be really written out. It was just like, let's just do it. It happened on social media. Because like, companies are not established like that. First you have a mission, then a vision, then, you know, the different values, the structure. We did it backwards. So just be patient with us. Once that structure is in place, there will be so much more decentralization that is possible without losing the value of No More. Objectivity is always a work in progress. You know, you have to evolve with the different information that you're getting. We're all can only be as objective as we can. I don't believe there's like a hard objective line on most things. I think that you know, when you're sort of looking at big picture, it's not always, you know, most things are not like the TPLF story, meaning you don't get almost 30 years of data, 30 years of one entity being in power. Most things are not going to be that black and white. Assume black and white bihonim bahonsat, there's a little bit of a lot of gray area stuff happening, right? Meaning, okay, we can keep focusing on what they have been doing and did, but really the newest topic is how do we fix it, right? Or what exactly is causing some of the suffering there now. So I know there's some stuff happening in Abala that's actually straining the humanitarian access. The humanitarian aid trucks, I mean, they just take them and then nobody says anything. It's like insane to me, right? And then people think it's no big deal, it's trucks. No, it's literally how things get there, right? The plane is not going to carry as much cargo as all these trucks. So to be just, to advance the conversation, just talk with what's new. Like when we're in an editorial room, we can't just say, you know, TPLF's a terrorist group or that, like that. We already know that. Like what's new today? You know, what's causing today's crisis? You know, what happened in Afar did not help the access. Now they're doing it through Abala. Like this international media is just so messy. I mean, some of it is true, some of it's not, some of it I don't know. So the best thing we could do is just talk about what we do know. We have more access to them, to these areas than they do. So if you can talk to people on Abala and really try to get more direct information, you're already doing more than they're able to get. In terms of are they not informed or not, you know, this is the structure. So it's a corporate media, like, so that means those people are tied to the government in some ways. They already know what they want to be said. So then the sources they give you, the UN, USAID, all that, say what they want to be said. And then the journalists use those sources because they're considered credible sources. So I think on a lower level, like on a journalist level, I don't think it's bad intent. I think they're just using whatever sources they have. And they don't really care that much. I mean, it's just one country, like out of a million countries in the world that they cover, right? There's specific journalists like New York Times, Declan Walsh, AP's Kara Anna, Nima El-Bagir, who seems to have left us alone, finally. They know what they're doing, right? They have an agenda, they're there to meet it. Everybody else is just kind of doing what they think is the truth. It's confusing. It's confusing. For someone who's not Habesha, it's actually really confusing, right? So I would just say, you know, if we're strong in our storytelling, we won't have to talk about them anymore. But it's going to take time to be able to compete on that level. Solution, I think the solution you were asking was about how to deal with the Western propaganda, right? The solution? Was that what it was about? Solution settlement or lemon?
What should we take as a solution in order to counter the misinformation?
Okay, yeah. It's you counter it with just good information. Just very specific, very specific. It doesn't have to be big. Very specific, and then get it on Twitter. Get it on Twitter in English. Get it on Twitter in an easy way. 140 characters or a graphic. People, you know what's better than 140 characters? Pictures. Like, people are so basic. Like, you know, Instagram does really well. Why? Pictures, right? So if you can just, like, this part of what we do in news is like, you just put away your complicated brain, you process the complicated stuff, and just literally spoon feed people, like super simple. It can't be too simple, especially when you're talking about, you know, trying to get our story to the international media. We need to just say, here, look, like a number. Isn't that interesting? Like, it has to be that basic, because otherwise they're just not going to spend the time. I'll start with the question about my mom and the love for country. We didn't talk that much about, you know, where we're from, whether it's from Ethiopia or Tigray. I don't know. It just wasn't. I had that simate because I was born here, but we were just kind of busy learning the language, going through school. I loved I loved music. I loved Amharic, Tigrinya, Guarani, whatever. I love music from the beginning. You put on music, I'll start dancing. But beyond that, there wasn't, it was more focused on just people, there were good people in Mississippi that were different races from, different countries, Korea, China, India, Ghana, Nigeria. Like, it wasn't so much like your Ethiopianness is like so, different. It was just like people, like, and then of course we had a lot of Habesha friends and family, especially when we moved to Tennessee. So I think that I would argue that my love for the country came because of my love for like just basic truths in humans to begin with. So because of that, when I saw Ethiopia being presented in such a dark way, in such a dark time, it just so happens I'm Ethiopian, and so I was paying attention, and I'm just like, I think that's wrong, right? Lela agar bihonim, if I knew enough about it, if I was connected to it, I would think I would stand just as strong, I think. There's something, I don't want to say we're special, because I don't like that kind of like language, but we're blessed. There's something blessed happening in this country. And it's not to say it's not happening in other countries. I don't know. There's like a core like goodness in a lot of people. I know the culture can be a little bit complicated, andande, and I think some of it is because people are trying to survive, and there's a little bit of a culture of just surviving, so maybe people are being different than they would normally be in a different time. But at the end of the day, I believe in the goodness of the people in this country, and it will come out more if the institutions are better, if healthcare is better, if education is better, so we can be free of all this like shikam, right? Like sometimes it's just like a cultural shikam. Why? Because it's about survival, and there's just there's people with a lot of money and a lot of people with no money. Like there's just that kind of society is not going to be best long term. So that's what I would say. And then because I was born here, I just love the language and the food and things just naturally connected like that. In terms of the truth and standing with the truth, I don't know. Like, I didn't think that hard about like what is gonna happen if I say this. I didn't think that hard. Because to me, ለረዥም ጊዜ ከሁማኒቴሪያን ትግራይ ሁማኒቴሪያን የሚባሉ ሰዎች ሰርቼ, like I gave so much of my time for free, my energy, my advice, all of that. So that's that. To me, I had every right to have my opinion. From about November to March, April, I gave a lot of my time to that cause, even though there was a lot of things I didn't agree with. So as soon as like I have the right to say something is what I thought. Again, the question was, is this worth the headache that is going to come with it? For a couple of months I said, Mom, I'm going to say something. Tell you what, like just please, just don't even bother. Like, you don't know the society, like it's not going to change, or it's not worth it. And then Mecharesha Lai, I think it all happened in a way that it just made sense to say something. And then of course it became way bigger than I thought. I don't know. If I really, really, really believe in something and it's this wrong, we're talking about people dying because of a lie. So I'm free. Thank God I'm a free person generally, relatively speaking, who lives in the United States. I live in LA. Connections like deeply with people from different political spaces. Right? Who's gonna do it? People in Tigray are gonna do it? Like, I don't have somebody with a gun to my head, like that's what I thought. If I was there as any as Zabanor, and there was somebody like me in the United States, and Minim Karalu, it's a shame, because I don't want to be inconvenienced by all the attacks that are going to come. I still think it's worth it. It's definitely a headache and it's affected a lot of things for me, but I would still do it all over again. Maybe I would be a little bit more softer about some of my language, but I still would say, I think what I believe to be true. And then to your third question about the global movement with No More, I mean, there's a lot of people here from different places, like from the Caribbean, some came from the States, different parts of Africa. I hope you guys are talking to them and interviewing them and having them on your channels. I've been doing some connecting, but I could do more. It's the access is there. If you guys create content for us, we'll share it, right? It shouldn't always be like, what is No More doing to make this happen? If you guys give us content where you're talking to somebody from Kenya or Uganda, we'll use it. Like if it, you know, if it's like usable, and then we'll add hashtag No More to it, and that's a part of making it happen. Like I don't think it should be that we are trying to feed the movements. Part of it has to go like both ways. Like content is important. Content is just, we're saying the same thing over and over again. Actually. So we just need more unique connections with different Pan-African stations, especially if you're doing English or Arabic. There's really no reason why not to make those connections. So I think similar to what we did with No More, the point of penetration is not directly to the mainstream media, it's through Twitter. So you make them see it because everybody's sharing it. So No More was not successful because we made CNN let us get on. They still, it was really difficult, right? So Twitter is game changer. It is truly a game changer. I cannot emphasize that enough. So if you have a 15-minute interview, of course that's difficult to have someone listen to, but take a good minute or two and put it on Twitter, add hashtag No More, send it to a bunch of people. Everything takes so much work. Like even with No More, I can't even explain to you how much work went into that because it requires so much detail. I have to write the tweet, I gotta do the research, I gotta make sure it's right. Everyone's doing so many things. So don't think that it's like you produce the interview and you're done. Like even when I produce interviews, I'm not done. If I do I kind of have a following so people will still look at it anyway, but to really get it exposure, I have to go in, edit, find that minute, take a quote from there, write it in text. So you're feeding them the video, you're feeding them the text, the title. There's even, if you put a title on it that's like 4 words that says what the point is about, and then you add hashtag No More, you send it to everybody you know. Just be annoying, be annoying until you get some exposure. If you believe in that content, just send it to me. Maybe I'll see it, maybe I won't. Send it to Ethiopian American Development Council that is in Denver. Send it to all the accounts that you know and just keep sending it. One day somebody's gonna retweet something, then you get a bunch of followers, a lot more followers, that video becomes conversation, and then that's huge if you do something like that. So don't think it's just you create it and then it somehow CNN's gonna be we really like that video. They won't even look at what I've done and I've got some mainstream media experience. So just force it through Twitter, and that's one way you could do that.